Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember, Context is Everything Media Network, the CIEMN network, that's right, is here, reading a textbook, cover to cover, yet again. This is the Our Pioneers and Patriots, back to this series here, and let's just jump right in. Seamen of Portugal and Spain. Prince Henry the Navigator. Prince Henry the Navigator, before Columbus started his voyages, other countries were searching for a new route to India. Even when Columbus was a young man, there was a great interest in such route. There lived in Portugal a prince named Henry. Prince Henry was interested in trade with the East. He was anxious to have Portugal profit by such trade. Such a trade route to India could be found by sailing around Africa. He also hoped to spread the Catholic religion. In order to ensure the success of this plan, he started a school for seamen. This school trained the seamen in the use of maps and sailing instruments. They were taught how to use a compass. It helped the sailors to know exact directions, the use of the astrolabe, as well was also taught. It helped the seamen know the location at sea. Before Prince Henry died, his men learned much about the west coast of Africa. Because Prince Henry was interested in sailing or navigation, he was called Prince Henry the Navigator. The Cape of Good Hope. After his death, the Portuguese continued sailing south along the coast of Africa. A daring Portuguese finally reached the southern Cape of Africa. His name was Bartholomew Diaz. This was in 1486. Diaz named it the Cape of Storms. The King of Portugal was happy. He ordered the name change to be the Cape of Good Hope. Notice on the map that the Cape of Good Hope is the very southern tip of Africa. I don't know if you can see it. There's a big glare on the screen. But that's okay. Doesn't really matter. You can look it up. Our Pioneers and Patriots, the voyage of Vasco da Gama. The Portuguese were not satisfied just to reach the Cape of Good Hope. They still hoped to reach India by sailing around Africa. In 1497, Vasco da Gama began such a voyage. He steered his little ship... Thank you. He steered his little ship along the west coast of Africa until he reached the Cape of Good Hope. The map on page 31 shows the route of Da Gama's voyage. He did not stay there. He sailed until he reached Calcutta in India. After this voyage, the merchants of Portugal began trading with the merchants of India. Americus Vespucius. Although the Portuguese had found a route to India by sailing east, they had not given up hope on reaching India by sailing west. It was one of their voyages to the west that America received its name. Among the seamen attracted to Portugal was an Italian by the name of Americus Vespucius. Where was I? He took part in a Portuguese voyage to the New World. After his return, he drew maps of the land he had seen. About this time, a German scholar was writing a geography. He used the map of Americus Vespucius. He gave the name America to the lands Vespucius had visited. This map was copied so often that the name America came into general use. Well, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? So it wasn't even intentional. It kind of just was a desire line, what have you. Desire line meaning the path that most people just naturally took to call the area, the region, America, because on the maps it was made by a guy named America. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting indeed. Context is Everything Media Network, founder and CEO John Michael. The CIEMN Network. Context is Everything Media Network. CIEMN. Adventures. The adventurous Spaniard, Juan Ponce de Leon. Explorers from Europe were learning many things about the New World. Many strange tales were told. Men who liked adventure were anxious to go to the New World. Among these were many good priests who wanted to work with Indians in the New World, Native Americans. Juan Ponce de Leon was a Spaniard. He listened to tales about the New World. He liked the stories of adventure and great wealth to be found. Ponce de Leon liked adventure, so he left Spain on an expedition to America. It is said that on a trip, Ponce de Leon was searching for the Fountain of Youth. This was supposed to be a magic spring that made old men young. This was a silly idea. Ponce de Leon did not find the Fountain of Youth, but he did find human sacrificing cultures. He did find those. So maybe this Fountain of Youth had something to do with the modern day. And this is just me talking out of score. I understand that. But I'm just saying it because I want to. Maybe the Fountain of Youth was all of the human ingesting that was going on in Native America before we arrived. Because we know that the Aztecs certainly ate human hearts in war sacrifice. And even not in war sacrifice, they just did it out of ritual. And maybe that is the Fountain of Youth. Because you hear in modern day, what do you call it? Modern day conspiracy theory that people eat human beings for youth. It's called adrenochrome, and there's a bug right there trying to tell me to stop talking about it. Explorers. Okay. This was supposed to be a magic spring that made old men young again, yada yada yada. Discovery of Florida. Discovery of Orlando. Spanish term for Easter is Florida. That is why he called the new land Florida. Ponce de Leon did. The map on page 33 shows that Florida is near the West Indies. Some of Spanish people already settled on other smaller islands of the West Indies and in Cuba. Vasco de Balboa. Another adventurous Spaniard, Vasco de Balboa, came to the New World to make a fortune. He tried farming on one of the islands of the West Indies. Balboa was not a successful farmer. He went into debt. It was not pleasant to owe bills. Balboa was worried. Not pleasant to owe bills. I like that. A party of Spaniards had gone to the mainland. They were in search of gold. Their supplies gave out. They sent back to the island for help. An expedition was made ready to go to their aid. Balboa saw a chance to escape from his debts. This was not an honest thing to do. How Balboa escaped. Balboa hid in a barrel. A workman put a lid on the barrel. No one knew a man had hidden in the barrel. Then the barrel was placed on the ship. The ship was going to the aid of a party on the mainland. Before the ship reached the land, a strange thing happened. The barrel began to move. Everyone was surprised. Some of the men were frightened. Soon Balboa stepped out of the barrel. The commander of the expedition was very angry. There was no way of sending Balboa back. The commander decided that Balboa might be helpful. He would be able to fight the Indians. The commander feared that the Indians might prove unfriendly. The party landed on the mainland. They went to search the Spaniards who were in distress. The part of the mainland where they landed is called Isthmus of Panama. This isthmus is a narrow strip of land which connects North America with South America. Find the isthmus on the map on page 33. What? What are they talking about? Isthmus. I don't know what they're talking about, but this is the map. If you know what they're talking about, leave it in the comment below, because I don't. They're talking about the Panama Canal area? I don't know. Yes, they are. Panama. Isthmus. Balboa became the leader. Balboa was a man of great force. He soon became a leader of the party. One day his men heard great news. An old Indian told them about a land with great wealth. It was a land where there was plenty of gold. The Spaniards were eager to get the gold. Gold meant wealth to them. Balboa led the party of about 200 men. They went in search of rich land. They spent 18 weary days in the search. It was a hard work. They had to cut their way through the thick growth of plants. There was no path to follow. If you want an image of it, I think that the story, or the film... What's the film called? I think it's like a Disney movie or something that looks like a Disney movie from 1998. That's like about Vasco de Bilbao with the barrel hiding and the search for gold. I forget what it's called. Doesn't matter. There's the bug again telling me to stop meandering and continue reading. Okay, will do. One day, Balboa climbed to the top of a high hill. He looked in every direction. Off the south, he saw a great body of water. Balboa was excited. He made his way down the hillside. His men were excited as they followed Balboa down to the sea. Here, Balboa stepped into the ocean. He waved a sword over his head. Then he showed his love for Spain. In the name of kings of Spain, Balboa took possession of all the lands touched by the sea. I don't understand how that works. The Pacific Ocean. It was the year 1513 when Balboa discovered the sea. He called it the Great South Sea. Later, another explorer named it the Pacific Ocean. Notice these interesting facts. 1. We think of the Pacific Ocean as to the west, but where Balboa crossed the Isthmus of Panama, the ocean was to the south. Okay? The whole west side of the New World is touched by the waters of the Pacific Ocean. Spain based their claim to these lands based on the discovery by Balboa. During the 20th century, the United States built the Panama Canal across the Isthmus of Panama. This gives direct waterway between the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. Ferdinand Magellan.
Oh,
Hi.
oh, I got this address. My friend is getting married. They told me it's the library. Is it possible?
Oh, what was it? What is it?
Cold Snack Library.
Yeah, this is the Coast Neck Library.
You think they give I don't know, they get married there?
No, they would probably, because those are municipal buildings.
Yeah.
I would guess that one.
So why was I told to library?
Probably because this is the parking lot, the same parking lot. But yeah, I'd say it would be that building because that's a municipal building, or that one. I would say that one though. That one looks like that's where people are.
Yeah, I would think so. Like library.
Yeah, not the library, but close by, close enough. Have a good day. Special guest, a lovely Russian lady. Maybe not Russian. Could be Ukrainian. Doesn't matter to me. Ferdinand Magellan, an adventurous nobleman. Ferdinand Magellan was a member of noble family. He lived in Portugal. As a young man, Ferdinand liked excitement. He entered the service of the King of Portugal. Young Magellan was sent to India. Later, he visited the Spice Islands. He gathered many ideas about the value of trade with the East. The voyage from Portugal around Africa to India was a long one, and it was tiresome. A new plan. Magellan began to wonder how a short way to the East could be found. He knew that the shorter way would mean a cheaper way. Magellan thought that the westward direction was the right one. He believed the plan to reach the east by a westward route. Magellan asked the King of Portugal to aid him. The king refused to help him. Magellan believed that his plan was a good one. He left Portugal and went to Spain. Magellan welcomed to Spain. During the Spain Portugal and Spain were rivals. The King of Spain was interested in Magellan, told him of his plan to reach the east by sailing westward. The king knew the great wealth could be gained if the shorter route was found. The King of Spain promised to aid Magellan. A fleet of 5 ships was outfitted for the voyage. Magellan believed the value of prayer. He visited a monastery. The men who lived a religious life in the monastery were called monks. Magellan begged the monks to pray for his success of his voyage. Magellan reaches South America. The fleet set sail from Spain in August 1519. Magellan planned to sail on. The weeks passed by. The coast of South America was sighted. Magellan sailed as close to shore as was safe. He was looking for a waterway through the continent. He did not find one because there was none. Magellan saw some of the natives. They were very large men with big feet. This land is now called Patagonia. The name Patagonia means the land of man with big feet. I didn't know that at all. The land of men with big feet, Patagonia. That's a great little tidbit of information there, I'll tell you right now. This land is in southern South America. The Argentines are vibrant. Trials. The weather grew very cold. Very cold. Magellan had sailed as far south along the coast of South America. He decided to anchor the ships. The crew did not like this. They wanted to return to Spain. The men begged and grumbled. They begged Magellan to return to Spain. Magellan had no thought of returning until he had reached the east. Some of the men plotted against Magellan. The leaders were punished with terrible harshness. Magellan was determined to sail onward in an attempt to reach the east. Not a very Christian thing that the monks were praying for, I'm sure, when he harshly punished, which I'm guessing involved death to the people who were trying to be traitors to him. But who am I to judge? This happened 510 years ago. Things were different then. The Channel of the Saints. After some time, Magellan decided to sail on. The little fleet sailed until it reached the strait which connects with the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. A strait is a narrow body of water which connects 2 larger bodies of water. Magellan called it the Channel of All Saints. A channel is another name for the strait. This strait is now called the Strait of Magellan. The fleet sailed through the strait. They had reached a new sea. They wondered if they dared to sail onward this unknown sea. Meeting of the captains. Magellan called a meeting of his captains, but one captain agreed to sail, but all but one captain agreed to sail until they reached the east. The captain who refused said that he feared that the food supply might not last. Magellan answered, If I have to eat the leather on the yards, I will still go on to discover what I have promised to the king, and I trust that God will aid us to give us good fortune. This brave little speech shows 3 things about the character of Magellan. He was a determined man. He would not turn back. He intended to go on until the east was reached. He valued a promise. He intended to keep his promise to the King of Spain. He placed his trust in God. Those are the 3 things we learned from his little speech. Meeting of the Great Trials. Magellan planned that his fleet would sail onward. There were only 4 ships now, in the fleet. Misfortune awaited them. One of the vessels ran aground. This means that the bottom or the keel of the boat became stuck on the bottom of the sea. The water was too shallow for the ship to float. This ship was destroyed. The fleet now numbered 3. The courageous fleet which sailed from Spain was dwindling. The largest ship was loaded with the most supplies. This vessel deserted the fleet. What? That is, it left the fleet without permission. This fleet now numbered 2 ships, without all of their supplies from that one that left. Magellan gave orders to sail on. On the Pacific Ocean, the 2 little ships sailed out on a great ocean. The winds was favorable and the sea was calm. Magellan called the ocean the Pacific. It was peaceful and calm. A little vessel. The little vessels were sailing on a broad unknown sea. No European seaman had ever sailed on its water before. Weeks after weeks passed. No land was sighted. Supplies were nearly gone. There was no good drinking water left. Many of the sailors were sick. Some of the men died. Magellan was very much worried. The Robber Islands. The vessels sailed for 3 months. They kept a westward direction. Land was sighted at last. Magellan ordered the ships to sail close to the land. The natives tried to steal everything from the ships. That's why Magellan called the group of islands the Robber Islands. Philippine Islands. The 2 little ships sailed on. 10 days later, they came to some more islands. Magellan named this group of islands the Philippines in honor of King Philip of Spain. At last, the sailors were able to get plenty to eat. Then a very sad event happened. A war was going on between the 2 native chiefs. Magellan took part in the war. He was killed in the fighting. The little fleet had lost its leader. The weary crew set sail once again, reaching the Moluccas. At last, the Molucca Islands were reached. The crew began trading with the natives. The Spaniards had red caps, glass beards, little bells, mirrors, and gaily colored clothes. That means vibrantly, I would assume. This book was written in 1940, I repeat. These spices were worth a very great sum of money in Europe. The 2 ships were filled with cargoes of spices. They returned to Spain. The 2 ships decided to take different routes to return to Spain. Only one ship, Victoria, reached Spain in 1522. This ship carried a cargo of 26 tons of spices. The sale of these spices paid all the expenses of the voyage. This voyage was important because it proved 3 things. 1. The world is round. A ship can sail around the world. 2. The land discovered by Columbus was not a part of Asia. It was really the New World. And 3. The East could be reached by sailing west. Thank you for listening. God bless. Yes. It's so bright.